Joining us today to discuss the latest economic developments of the Israeli-Hezbollah war, especially the Haifa port, is Dr. Kariem, a political and economic researcher on Israeli affairs. Thank you for joining us here on the Economic Bulletin. Firstly, could you tell us how significant is Haifa port to Israel's overall trade and supply chain?
Now we're talking about a new situation in Israel. The main entrance for commodity in Israel is Haifa port. There are other maritime ports that are totally halted. Eilat port, for example, has been suspended its work for 7 or 8 months. Haifa is the main port now that through which the commodities enter Israel. There is some support from Jud port, however, the main port is Haifa. So striking Haifa port would totally paralyze the Israeli imports and exports. Haifa port is used to supply both Palestinian and Israeli markets. So people in West Bank are suffering from the high prices of different goods. There is also great risk of that some Palestinian villages and cities would have difficulty getting their essential needs and commodities, including food. And repercussions resulted from the war up till now.
So what specific goods and industries would be the most affected by the closure of this port?
First of all, the normal goods, on top of them food supplies and essential commodities, all of them enter through Haifa port. Also the raw materials that are used in the Israeli manufacturing coming from different countries. So this will hit all the different industries that require raw materials in the manufacturing process. Thus, this port is very vital and essential. It's safe also to say that the import of oil and energy substances, all of them come through Haifa port because it's the closest to the oil refining centers in Israel. So this sector as well is threatened by a great strike if the work in this port would stop.
So if Haifa port is shut down, in your opinion, are there short and long-term impacts economically that Israel could face, both in terms of direct cost of living on the average Israeli citizen and on the broader economic effects, like in terms of the macroeconomics, GDP and so forth?
The Israeli relations in terms of trade with the West are centered around this port because the main entrance of Israel is Haifa port. Ashdod port is a substitute one way or another, but only from 35 to 37% of the total Israeli imports, but the main reliance is on Haifa port. So the trade relations between Israel and the European Union and the United States and the West in general are highly threatened because now the eastern markets are also closed because of the closure in the Red Sea. So many commodities resort to another faraway path until they reach Israel. So they go through Haifa ports. The trade relations between Israel and Europe and the United States are very threatened, which will in turn paralyze many industries, especially the industry that used to be exported from Israel to the United States and Europe. So now they are suffering from a big problem on two paths. First, the foreign investments, and the second path is the difficult trade movement between Israel and the different countries, which will increase and double the problem in terms of foreign investments, because the foreign companies that want to invest in Israel now suffer from different problems. First of them was before the war, because of the judicial system issue in Israel that is very threatened now. The second issue is the public security, because now no one can talk about the horizon for settlement or the end of the war or a potential for security and stability in Israel. The third thing is the trade movement itself that suffers from a problem, because the exchange of goods between Israel and different countries already suffers from problems. So everyone in Israel now asks themselves, if we want to invest in this market, can it be dependable for a production, or it can be considered a production place? Of course not, which will decrease the credit rank of Israel.
Since you spoke about global partners, including Europe and the United States, how would Israel's global trade partners be affected as well, especially in Europe, in response to a potential disruption in the port? Will they also be economically affected by a shutdown of Haifa port, not just Israel?
Of course, now we can see many foreign companies that stopped communicating and dealing with Israel, not only for ideological reason, but for merely economic reason, which is that Israel now is unsafe place. That was first. Second, if there is a serious strike against Haifa port, this will paralyze the port, which means that Israel is not safe. In addition, dealing with Israel at the level of import and export is not possible. So the question is, to which extent that strike can affect, its effect would be on a very long term, because it will cause a paralysis to this port that would last for 2 or 3 months. So everyone wants to deal with Israel at the level of import and export, and seeking a certain level of stability would think twice, because they may reach a point where they cannot depend on Israel as an importer or exporter, or as a source of raw material, because many ships cannot enter Haifa port.
So, sir, do you think that these companies, these international companies, may follow suit like Italy and halt operations in Haifa port?
Of course, this is clear. We can see indicators. Many companies are cutting the ties completely and suspend their economic events. For example, the gas mining, and a major US company that invests in the gas field in Haifa port or close to it. This company has stopped all of its future projects. They do not want to continue investing in Israel, because they believe that Israel is going to a new phase, which is the phase of war and occupation. Israel is not moving towards stability. If this situation continues, this means that the gas fields will be struck also by resistance in Lebanon, which will lead to total destruction of industry, especially energy industry in Israel.
Okay, I apologize, Dr. Well, for cutting you off, but we're out of time for this segment on the Economic Bulletin. Thank you, Dr. Well Kariem, a political and economic researcher, on your insights. You're an Israeli affairs expert as well and a researcher. Thank you for your insights, and thank you for joining us.